Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to report to all of you that the chess world has some breaking news. We have the youngest Grandmaster of all time, Abhimanyu Mishra. I made a video about him a couple of months ago, feels like maybe even just a month ago, and he's beaten the record of Russian Grandmaster at the time, Ukrainian Grandmaster Sergei Karyakin, and he is the world's youngest Grandmaster at 12 years old, 4 months, and 25 days. In this video, I'm going to take you through 2 games that he won, the critical games of his tournament that he's currently playing in Europe. Then we will take a look at how we got here and the list of those top players. Timestamps on the video player, let's just jump right into all the games. Yeah, so this is from the 4th round, and he's playing not a 10-player closed event, which is also common, but he's playing a 20-player mix. And there's 10 rounds, so you don't really control the pairings. That's just how it works. D4, D5, C4, C6. Abhimanyu's got the white pieces in this game, and he plays the Queen B3 Slav. Now, Shahil Day is a young Indian player playing as well in Europe, and actually these two have been playing each other for the past like 2 months. I mean, what do you do when you see the same rival all the time, right? Work on your game, keep getting better, and Abhimanyu improvises, and I mean, obviously not improvises, he's prepared the Queen B3 Slav, takes, and in this line, basically white gives away some queen tempi. Oftentimes the queen will come back to one of these 2 squares for a 3rd time, but black trades off one of the 2 center pawns for the C pawn, and the meta is that by blocking their own development and allowing white 2 central pawns, white has an advantage. But of course, this is a theoretical discussion. Bishop F5, Abi fiancheros the bishop. Bishop E7, they both castle, both knights come out. Now, this knight comes out to B2, D2, I'm sorry, not C3, for a couple of reasons, but the real reason is that it's all about a bit of flexibility. Like, long term, you actually maybe don't want this knight here in some lines. If you have the knight on C3, perhaps your main idea is to make the E4 thing possible. But if you play knight D2 and then bring your queen back to get it out of danger, this is an entirely separate complex of ideas. Maybe you have no business playing this, but rather trying to centralize the knight with C4 and Bishop F4 and winning the dark square. So he chooses a different knight position and actually welcomes a queen trade. And one thing about Abhi's games, and I urge you all, if you want to spend like 30-40 minutes, look him up, look at his most recent tournaments. This kid is insane at endgames. I mean, he takes everyone to the endgame. And that's how you know you got a prodigy on your hands. He's not trying to outslug you in some nasty tactics like deep in the mud. This kid will trade queens on move 10 and just beat you down and take your soul. And black here in this position actually doesn't go for that queen trade because despite it leading to a double pawn structure, the open rook here, the knight coming to a5 might be unpleasant. And black actually goes away from the endgame. But now white plays bishop f4 and this bishop d6 idea, and bishop takes e7. Deliberately trading off the dark squared bishop, leaving black with 2 slightly passive knights and a dark square complex that is up for grabs. Knight d6 hits the bishop backs up, and now he moves the queen for the 4th time in 16 moves. But if you take stock of the opening, these knights aren't great. The pawns aren't going to really have too much forward mobility. The bishop could just be a target. In fact, it could just get trapped in the center of the board, so black has to play something like knight c8, looking to trade off this knight. It's a relatively unpleasant position. Now, the second that this knight abandons post, Abhimanyu very well versed in his danger levels. What's worth more than a knight? He knows, Gotham Chess viewer. But the h7 pawn, and namely the king, and he plays knight to g5. Now knight f6, and he brings the other knight out because he understands that this trade is better, and leaving that knight on c8 dislodged in between the rooks is actually better for white. We have a trade, and now the pawn on h7 is under fire. Now, in this position, you can also play a move like f5 and force white to take, but white will not take. White will attack the queen, leaving this bishop looking kind of dumb and lost in the center of the board. f3, e4, or just e4 straight away to reopen this wound. And that's actually why black decided to go for this. Understanding, let me just show this, understanding that this was a problem, but also realizing that after h5, it looks ugly, but you're safe. And moves like knight to e4 to try to get to f6, they're fine, but the queen and the knight don't coordinate that well. And actually, black can just call your bluff here, and Abhimanyu avoids this. See, I might even play into this. I might convince myself in the middle of a game, I like this, and I like being down a pawn with, weakening of the enemy king, and I've got attacking chances, and that's an entirely different stylistic matchup. And essentially what I'm saying is this 12-year-old kid is just more mature of a chess player than me, despite me having double his lifespan on Earth. But, right, like I might go for this, but he doesn't. He doesn't. He plays solid. He plays e3 first, gets the pawn out of the way, and then he just brings his pieces back. And essentially what he's saying is, let's play the long game. You've pushed pawns. These pawns are going to be weak. Now I'm going to centralize my knight and move my queen out, and now I'm targeting this h6 pawn. If you come and guard it with the king, then maybe I'll advance here, but I've got moves like knight d7, hitting your rook and threatening queen f6. That's very unpleasant. And so knight f5, and what did I just say? a4 first. Now this is not a pawn that's hanging. Rook b1, rook b7 will get it back immediately. But more importantly, folks, the knight is the chief defender, and now Abhimanyu begins operations on that side as well. He kicks the knight out from the defense of the h6 pawn. Black responds with the only move, which is to hit the queen, but now Black is trying to defend the king by pushing pawns in front of the king. Abhimanyu's making him make moves that will just further weaken his position, and they're only moves. These are only moves, and now he snuck in. Now Black would love to play queen d8 here and trade queens, but then you would lose this. So Black has to play this move, actually, because Black needs to create a counterattack. So, of course, this, and now king h7. And it looks like Black has stabilized. But it's not to be. Knight takes f7. Excuse me, knight takes f7. Queen h6 is a problem, but it looks, actually, like White has tied his shoes together. And even though Abhimanyu is a chess player, he knows how to tie his shoes properly. Listen, some of those grandmasters, I'm not sure they know how to boil tea or tie their shoes. This kid's different. Now the only move to keep advantage. e4. This queen cannot come back and attack the knight pinned like this because of the absolutely insane queen sack. Check. Attracting the king to this square. It's a sacrifice known as attraction. And now you come back and you fork and you just emerge, right, like a bandit in the night. Or in this case, probably at 2 p.m. when this game was played. So instead we have queen b3, and now the gangster move. The queen needs help. How do you get the queen help in this position? How do you activate one of the rooks? Well, that's easy, Gotham. You go here or you go here. No, you can activate a piece without moving it. f4. Look at that. Here's the problem. If this knight ever moves, queen h6 is game over. If the pawn takes, and it did, but Black played a different move, it looks like this. No, folks. No. No. By moving this up, you've activated not this rook. It was an illusion. You're activating another rook. You're activating this rook. Isn't that incredible board coordination? Hits the queen and brings the rook over here. That's how he's going to win this game, by playing this. That's how he's going to win this game. Look at how incredible that board... And of course, he saw this. He saw this. I mean, he played f4 with rook a3, rook h3 in mind. It's forced mate now. You cannot prevent this. I mean, look at that board vision, all because of a pawn move. Now, to any masters or 2000s or strong players who watch some of my videos, you might sit here and go, well, yeah, I mean, f4 is... Listen, f4 is, yeah, it's an understandable move. Rook a3, rook h3. I understand that. Doesn't kill the fact that this kid is on his game all the time. He is sharp. He knows what's up. He understands the board. And there you go. It's a different version of the same idea. In this version, Black plays check and timely brings the queen back to trade it. What did I say about Abhimanyu? Not afraid of endgame transitions. He trades queens. He takes the pawn and he plays this important pawn move and trades, and again finds a way to coordinate all his pieces, check, and escapes. And he's now 2 pawns up in a rook and knight endgame, a little bit overextended. So what does he do? Brings the knight back, consolidates, gives an important check, kicks the king back, and you can take this, but your knight gets trapped. So he goes here, pawn push, bring the king, all his pieces get a turn, no perpetual, no thank you, and now I'm just going to check you, centralize my knight, all these pawns will fall. So here, Shahil Day resigned. This was round 4. Now, he actually lost the game a little bit later in this tournament with the white pieces, but the game to clinch was in round 9. He had the black pieces versus a newly minted grandmaster also from India. In fact, I think India's newest GM. Leon, last video I called him Mendonca, but that's like the Italian pronunciation, I suppose. So is it Mendonça? Is that how you would say it? Anyway, some people in the comments were like, vomiting at how you pronounce that. I'm sorry. So, Leon. And the thing is, Abhimanyu's got the black pieces in this game, okay? This is a very tough win. Like, to win this game is very difficult. He's got to win to get the GM norm. And if he doesn't get it in this game, he's probably got to win tomorrow. But you all know the story already, all right? I can't keep you in suspense. So how did he do it? Well, Abhimanyu plays the Grunfeld defense, which is, look, like, if you want to be a super GM nowadays, you got to learn this. I'm never learning this because I want to be a 2501 GM and then abandon classical chess forever. Bishop f4 played, one of the main lines. He plays bishop g7, e3 castles, and very standard stuff in the Grunfeld. You explode the position with d5 and c5. Takes on c5, and now an interesting move. Bishop to e6. Literally giving this pawn a jetpack to take on c4 and forcing a decision out of white. If white were to take, then everything opens up for white's favor. For black's favor. Like, this whole queen side just completely falls apart. Since white is behind in development, white needs to catch up in development. So white plays knight f3, bishop e2, doesn't worry about what's going on in the center, and black is continuously creating threats, like, by virtue of white's lack of development. So knight g5 hits the bishop, and the bishop is protected with knight d8. Here, I think computer was saying this is an idea. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some opening prep here, and to, like, take and go here, and not even, like, to play moves like d4, and just crack it all open down the center with this rook and e5, and this is just bad news. So he plays knight to d8 in what I can only imagine is now we are gone from the opening. So queen a4 looking for a queen trade to then defend this pawn. Takes, and we have a queen trade. And again, Abhimanyu might have not set out to win this game because the position's completely symmetrical. White has two bishops. If anybody has an advantage, it's Leon. So knight c5, and takes. Now we don't even have the bishop pair. The only imbalance in this game is this. I would offer a draw here. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. And then, you know, the rooks come and the rooks get traded and the rooks get traded. Saying, you're joking, right? He won this game. Well, here's the thing. Every position inherently has some sort of imbalance. In this case, it's the doubled pawns. But then it's also the structure of the pawns. And here, believe it or not, the machine says minus 0.25. Like, it actually thinks that black is better just based on the structure, just based on whatever color complex of squares might be up for grabs, the doubled pawns, and the ability to be mobile with the king. Black is going to get to the center faster. Black is going to control the center faster than white. So f5, a6, and now the knight is jumping in, but it's not really clear what the knight is doing. So king here, b5. Now, this is an invitation to officially kill off the imbalance and draw. What does Abhimanyu do? No, thank you. Let's just play on a little bit. Let's just play on. Not respecting the title that the opponent has, not respecting the 40-50 point advantage. Let's play the position. Knight d5, knight c5, a4. You can't have my pawn. You can't have my pawn. Now, he can chase the knight here, for example, and force the knight forward. That's actually what I was thinking when I was watching this game, but we get to this position, and Abhimanyu does not need a second invitation. This is how you create the imbalance. Bishop for knight is normally not a great trade, but in an endgame where you can beat your opponent to the center, keep this in mind, beat your opponent to the center, and remember that your piece imbalance inherently will control what color complex you fight on. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 pawns on light squares. That means this bishop has no targets, but the knight is a double agent. The knight can see the whole board. That bishop can see only 32 squares. So that knight is flexible, right? So king d5 and e5. We've won the fight to the center. We have the better placed pieces. Now can we actually play this for a win? e4. Pawn takes. F takes. Now what's funny is that the best move was king takes. And it's sort of surprising he didn't play this. He must have thought that something was wrong here, like bishop g5, king c4. Maybe he didn't like this. But he makes an incorrect transformation, maybe low on time, maybe only focusing on keeping everything kind of symmetrical, not taking any risk. But here comes the knight, h5, and king takes a4. So he's giving away a pawn. It's actually not good. King c4, king a5, knight b3, and king b6. And believe it or not, white, well, first of all, white offers a repetition, but after king b4, we have this change. Now white is a pawn up. But what's the problem? What's the problem? Again, white is a pawn up, but black has no more weaknesses. And look at the king. This difference in activity is everything. I am now first to all of your weaknesses, right? But white does still maintain this b pawn. It's very difficult not to take things, but apparently he shouldn't have taken on b7. That's That's life. Okay, it's kind of difficult to make decisions sometimes in chess. And now here comes the king run to d3. Bishop g5, knight d2, and Abhimanyu finds this trick. Look at that. Knight to f3 check. Shots like this on move 48 of a game can be so devastating psychologically because you're like, oh my god, if I move my king, he takes, I take, he takes. Isn't he winning? The answer is no. b4, king f2, b5, e3, b6, e2, b7, e1, b8. And actually, they tie, and even though you can pick up both pawns, like in this position, actually no, black can hold this. White can hold this. It's a draw. But white was like, whoa, this dude miscalculated and took. And after pawn takes, a piece down, white must have missed this move. g5. Winning an ever so important tempo on this bishop, which has to maintain control of f2. If bishop to g3, then king e2, and h4, and the bishop has no more squares. And for example, if h4 in this position, to again try to maintain control, g4, and white is too slow. You are faster, and you are faster because of one very important thing, folks. And it's this, and the ever so cruel diagonal loss. You make a queen and lose it. It is not the queen promoting, period. You get one for a move, and then I take your soul away from you. And that's actually how this game ultimately finished, in this position. Because b8 is met with this. Now, you can probably also just like push a pawn. I wouldn't be shocked if there's some way that that doesn't exist. But if I edit this position with the king on e6, like, it's holdable. It's holdable. It's very difficult, but it's holdable. Actually, king e6 would, I guess, be check. So maybe something on d5. But in this position, Leon resigned because of this check. Abhimanyu showing again endgame resilience, ability to play through the equal positions, and absolutely deserved. And with this win, he clinched officially the youngest Grandmaster title of all time. And folks, I just want to draw your attention to something, okay? Before we talk about his career the past few months. Take a look at this, okay? We're going to take a look at now his FIDE page. This is him. He doesn't even have a profile picture because he's so young. 2504 rating. Look at this, folks. In fact, he played a tournament in February 2020 before the pandemic where he didn't do so well. He lost a lot of rating. He played in Charlotte. He played 2 tournaments in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he didn't do so great. And then he took off like nearly a year. I mean, he played some tournament. I don't know what this was. I don't know where he played. Oh, he actually played in Charlotte as well with the masks. So he took a very long break, but it took him about a year, 10 months. And think about that study time, that incubation period of knowledge. And he came back with a vengeance, went off to Europe, and gained and just wreaked havoc. Look at this. 15.6, 37.6, 16, 61 points, 18 points, and he got that rating. Folks, he played 70 games in 77 days in Europe. Think about that. That is unbelievable. That work ethic, all that time put in, and he got the norms. And I believe this is the page for Grandmaster norms in the United States of America on FIDE. You don't see me here yet, but you see my good friend. Shout out to my man, Mr. Alexander Ostrovsky, one of my closest, what was I don't even know what I was going to say, friends. And there's some other players here, but if you go to Abhimanyu Mishra's page, which I believe is here, he got his other norms in Hungary as well in this kind of run of demolition. And last but not least, this is it. 12 years, 4 months, and 25 days, eclipsing the other record. Still some very strong Indian players on here at the age of 12, but think about what the pandemic did. This kid could have had this at 11. In fact, he might have spared future generations because he could have gotten this title at 11 years old. And yeah, unbelievable. And you know, not everybody's gonna be thrilled about this. Not everybody. And what I mean by that is I'm super proud, you know, super proud of him. That doesn't mean anything to him. I'm just saying that, you know, everybody was rejoicing on social media. But there were some things like, well, you know, he went off to Europe and he beat up a bunch of Europeans. So there needs to be something standardized. He played a lot of closed events, right? So Jan Nepomniachtchi actually tweeted that he thinks that for the future, one of your norms, it's required that you play an open tournament. So Abhimanyu got all his norms in closed events. That's what Nepo said, right? I'm just here to report the facts. We have officially a youngest grandmaster, and we will see whether, you know, going off to a different part of the world to play in those events and gain rating and gain those norms. It's very common practice. In fact, I did it 2 years ago to Europe. There's different playing conditions and different styles, and Europe is a bit more relaxed, 1 game a day, whereas America's 2 games a day. But folks, history is made. You're free to discuss whatever you saw on social media in the comments below. I'm just here to report it as it is. Congratulations, Abhimanyu. Massive accomplishment. And before I sign off in this video, I just want to say, be careful with the world champion comparisons. Maybe this kid is really into engineering. I don't know. Maybe he wants to go off and build a robot, right? The thing is that the next step for him is massive to take. It is going to take 5 times as much work to get from 2,500 to 2,600, 26 to 2,700. We see some of the other players. Prague, Ramesh Babu, Nikhil Sarin, Nordirbek, Alireza Firouzja, and the list goes on and on. Let's watch him grow and progress. Let's not immediately say, that's the future world champion, because you never know. Life is long. You got to work hard and continue the grind. And for now, we wish him all the best and a lot of congratulations from me and from the community as well. And we hope to continue to make videos of you in the future. Take care, everybody. Wanted to report this to all of you. And I will see you in the next video. Get out of here.